Right, okay. So here I am today with Greg Pattison of Great Paws, based in the Northeast. If you could just introduce yourself, Greg, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Good morning, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Yeah, Greg Pattison. I run Great Paws. I'm based up in the northeast, or in and around kind of the Teesside, Durham area. And yeah, I do all aspects of dog training, but my kind of passion and heart lies in large breeds and what would probably be classically dubbed as reactivity.
Happy days, yeah. And going on from that, you have a reactive dog, don't you, called Betty Boo?
I do, yeah. So I've got three dogs in my family. I've got a little Cavalier King Charles Spaniel called Lucy, who she's the old girl of the bunch. She's just 12 and a bit now. I've got a rescue German Shepherd called Hugo and a rescue German Shepherd called Betty Boo, who's as my neighbour kind of very politely calls her. She's my sassy one when we're out on walks. she's she does get a little bit anxious when she's out and about on lead. Bless her.
Yeah. What is it that she's anxious about or towards? What's her triggers?
So it's definitely dogs. Is probably her biggest trigger. Specifically when she's on lead. So she gets incredibly anxious. So with it being a rescue, we are fortunate enough to know the family that she came from. So we have a little bit of history, but not everything. When she first joined us, so she's been with us now just over coming up to 2 years in November. She's been with us. When she first came to join us, it was a bit like having a Tasmanian devil on the end of your lead when she saw another dog from great distances as well. It was, talking 100 meters plus. If she saw another dog, she'd just go into this frenzy. She'd spin, she'd bark, as part of the barking, it was a bit of like an air snap as well. And then mix that in with the spinning. It did look quite frightening at the end of the lead. And I'm not a small guy. And even I struggled to hold her. She's not a big shep. She's, for German Shepherd standards, she's quite small. She's only about 33, 34 kilo, she's great shape, but she is, height, everything. She is quite small for a shep. But yeah, man, she was hard to hold. She just have these meltdowns with dogs. But like I say, she lives with two others, and at the time we actually had three others. So we knew it wasn't kind of this crazy overt hatred, aggression towards the dogs, because she would quite happily live with three others. So
yeah,
for me, getting kind of under the skin of why it was that the way she was a huge challenge, and probably took, honestly, anything between 6 and 12 months, and that was with the support of another trainer as well, to help me really get under the skin of what was going on, getting their kind of behavioural expertise in as well to do it. And to be honest, even now, as you do, you kind of work being a professional and also having a dog who suffers from this anxiety when she's out and about. I think she has this horrible cocktail of excitement and anxiety. She doesn't know how to socialize. She's never really had that growing up. Even when she plays with Hugo, her manner of play is, from a doggy perspective, is very rude. She doesn't do all the things that you would kind of see with the classic nice play. It's not lovely loose body language. It's not lovely play bows. There's no kind of 50-50 kind of, back and forth.
yeah.
She just gets so excited when she plays. She basically bullies Hugo into wanting to play with her. And she's learned over time and previous experiences that obviously I've not been privy to, that certain things will create a reaction from another dog, which she thinks is playful. So she thinks charging over to another dog and barking at it, and even with Hugo nipping him, will solicit a response, which she thinks is great because it initiates a game of chase. Even though for us as professionals and even just general dog owners, if you see that out and about in public, it's frightening. There's no other word to describe it. If you see a German Shepherd charge towards you, nip your dog and run off, that doesn't look nice. And even though I know from a behavioral perspective why she's doing it and what she's trying to solicit a response of, obviously having that, obviously just, it's not responsible dog ownership, which is why she doesn't go off in the park. But yes, she has this terrible mix of like anxiety and almost like wanting to say hello, but having no concept of how to do it. And she just gets so overloaded with those emotions. She just, I call it, she melts down. It's kind of how I do it. She just kind of gets so wound up. She melts down. Luckily, nowhere near like she was now. We spent a lot of time working on that with her, but she's yeah, it's still control and management for me every day when we walk. It's distance, changing directions, getting her busy working, doing other things rather than getting so focused on the other dog that those emotions take over for her.
Yeah, yeah. I thought there's quite a lot going
I
on there.
waffled quite a lot there, but apologies.
Yeah, quite a lot going on with her. Bless her. Yeah. In some ways, she sounds a bit like Dieter, who I walk. She sadly didn't have any socialization and stuff as a young puppy. Um, I know bits of her history have been pieced together, but there is chunks missing.
Yeah.
And she's classed as like a frustrated greeter. She can be dog reactive, but a lot of what you're talking about, I can see in Dieter. Sort of, she wants to say hello, she wants to play, she doesn't know how she should do it, and sort of her approach at times. I suppose in the doggy world, in the language and stuff, the body language that they use is quite rude.
Yeah.
But that's her way. But yet she's really friendly and really great with two family dogs who themselves are both reactive dogs. One's a shepherd, one's a lurcher, but the three of them can really play quite happily and stuff. But unfamiliar dogs and that, no, Dieter sort of, it's very hit and miss. But
Yeah.
there's been a lot of work has gone into Dieter, and she's so much better now than what she used to be. But like you say, it takes time. It's not quick fix. It's not going to happen overnight.
No, certainly not. I mean, I've done work with Betty. So, pre-COVID, we used to run charity dog walks for a German Shepherd charity, and she's been on the beach with, I think our biggest group was 52 other German Shepherds
Wow.
off lead. Fantastic. Doesn't bother with any of them. She's only interested in me and Hugo, my other Shep. That's all she wants to spend her time with. She just plods around, has the time of her life. Hers is very lead. The second that lead goes on, it's like flicking a switch on. And again, we go to some enclosed fields, and I've had friends' dogs there that she's met and she's great with. But the second she feels, for want of a better description, kind of restrained by that lead, and her options are suddenly limited in her free will,
Yeah.
that's when that emotion starts to just creep up incredibly quickly for her. And I think that's what, as an owner, taking my dog trainer head aside, that's the bit that's really difficult for me, because I know she's all right. She's not um, all right. She has rude play style, but that aside, like I say, she's not a vicious dog or a dangerous dog or any of the things that like I worry about people kind of labeling her with. If they do see her have a little bit of a shout when she's on lead when we're walking, and that's, I think, for me where it does get frustrated, because I know all of that potential is there. She's in the house, she's a beautiful dog. She's very loving, dead funny. And that transition to being able to take all of that lovely, calm personality that she has and all of that capability to be a very well-rounded social dog when she's off lead, and combine that to when she's on lead, that's my utopia. That's heaven for me. But as you rightly said, it's not an easy route, and it's a frustrating route as an owner. And like I say, dog trainer aside, I'm a professional. It's still, just because I'm a professional doesn't make it any easier for anybody. If you have a dog that does get anxious, does get worried, does have what we would dub as kind of label as reactive, there is no magic cure for it. And I think that's the bit for me professionally that I really enjoy working with, because the research that's gone into dogs, obviously, over the past 10, 20 years, and that big shift in mindset away from probably, the style of training and the expectations of the dog when I grew up, which was nothing that I'd endorse now. That's a bit for me where helping people kind of understand the emotional side of what's going on and how much it's different for dogs for that emotional side, and how much that does take over. I'm a big fan of analogies when I'm kind of working with clients, and I often use a kind of tarantula and juggling analogy to try and bring it to life to people, which is a bit of a weird one. But I always say, like, if I can't juggle, which it's a really bad analogy to use, but if I could, me juggling is is doing one thing, and that's me walking nicely on a lead as a dog.
Yeah.
However, if somebody comes at me with a tarantula in their hand, the distance that they approach me from, when I see them, how quickly they come towards me, and how I actually feel on that particular day with my phobia of a tarantula anyway, all of those things come into that mixing point. And I'm very quickly going to forget how to juggle, and I'm going to go into screaming and running away, or potentially hitting the person who's running at me with a tarantula, because my emotion now is overriding my logic. My ability to do stuff like juggle is gone out the window, and I'm now just in a fully almost primal response type reaction.
I was just going to say, it's like the primal part of the brain's going to kick in. It's fight or fight.
It really is. And I find people can kind of resonate with that a little bit from a client perspective, which is really good. And then when you try and then take into account that dogs, from an emotional perspective, are so much more advanced than we are, and they, emotion dictates pretty much everything they do generally. It takes a lot of work for dogs to really engage that thinking part of their brain. So if they've got that much kind of emotional potential versus us, taking my analogy and then kind of magnifying it by 5 times, that's why it's so difficult. And I think that's why we get a lot of conflict as kind of people and dogs. When you have got a dog that is, responding emotionally to a situation, I think that's where it can be quite hard, because in our head we start to apply logic very quickly. Don't worry, it's not a dog actually, it's a lady with a carrier bag. But Betty in that little moment will have that double take of, oh my God, is that a dog? And she'll stop. And I'm kind of, logic dictate. It's a woman with a carrier bag, don't panic. But I then need to stop and help her out, let her process that information and let the thinking part of her brain kick in rather than the emotional one, so she can make the right decisions. And giving that time and space and kind of understanding that she needs that was, when I worked with the other trainer who was fantastic, that was one of the biggest things for me of actually, I need to find those sweet spot moments of knowing how can I respond that's going to help her. There will always be times when that kind of control and management, that just get out of dodge kind of stuff needs to happen. But where there is opportunities that I can help her learn, that's where I need to be more mindful and really kind of support those wherever I can. And that's what we spent the last year pretty much doing. And she's amazing. Like, she's come on so far from where she was. Like, now it's maybe 1 or 2 woofs is kind of, if a dog comes out of nowhere, she hasn't really seen it, she'll have a sudden turn, she'll look, she'll have a bit of a kind of lean in the harness, she'll have a woof, but her ability to now disengage and start doing some work for me is amazing. And she actually sniffs, which, for anyone who's got a reactive dog, hopefully will probably be very aware of how little a dog that is nervous or anxious or very stimulated by the environment will actually just get their nose down and kind of ignore everything else around them and just enjoy the smells. And for about the past 6 months, she's really started to do that a lot more. So that was like a big milestone for me. That was a big tick in the box to know that it is working, it is going in the right direction. Yes, it can be slow, painful and frustrating at times, and we'll always have bad days, but generally the projection is all uphill for us, which is which gives me the warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is like, I have a rescue staff who I named my business after, Pud Pud. And she's not great with other dogs. We know she was used as a breeding machine and stuff. She wasn't nicely treated at all. You can just, certain situations and things that happen out on walks and stuff, you just think, that's a little slither insight to her past, just how she behaves and stuff. And then sort of like quite a lot of the dogs that I walk they're fearful, they're anxious, they're nervous, they fall under the reactive sort of umbrella term that sort of covers all of them. And I just really encourage the sniffing so much. So like Waffle, the Romanian street dog, he's only a puppy, But I know his owner said it was only a couple of weeks after I started walking him. They noticed out on walks when they were walking him, suddenly he was sniffing, whereas before he never was. He was just literally all about, well, let's get to point B and I can get home.
Yeah.
Just all about as quick as he possibly could be out, and like he wouldn't toilet. He just wouldn't. And
Just do
now,
this thing that my human's making me do.
yeah. So I really encourage sniffing. I mean, most of the pictures on my page, I think, probably is literally just dogs sniffing random things and stuff. And that's the easiest time to get a picture because they're virtually still and the nose is to the ground, so you can get some nice pictures. But yeah, I really encourage all the sniffing and get their olfactory senses really going.
It's such a relaxing thing for them to do as well, obviously, and for anyone who's into that stuff. I mean, the research in that kind of olfactory world is amazing, but because of how much brain power it takes for them to really kind of process all those smells and that kind of thing, and because of so many dogs do get that kind of I call it that bucket empty, that ability to actually decompress a little bit and start to almost just get so absorbed in the sniffing that, you know, it's actually quite therapeutic and quite relaxing for them. And that's, yeah, once you can kind of harness that and promote it and capture it and make it part of the way to deal with stuff, and just to generally enjoy your walk as well. Like I think one of the bad habits that I hold my hand up and still I do this even as a trainer and I know better as such. That ability to actually still promote it when there isn't the need to. And what I mean by that is, I think when you've got a dog that does respond to things in the environment when you're out and about and walking, it's very easy to find yourself, I call it that firefighting. You're kind of waiting for the event, managing it, dealing with it, waiting for the event, managing and dealing with it, and then forgetting to promote the good stuff when the event isn't happening.
Yeah.
So actually, when we go out on a walk, if Boo stops and wants to sniff something, like I'm there now, kind of, there's no dogs around, there's no people, there's nothing around that might kind of start to pay into that type of, that response from her. But I'm there now promoting it and encouraging it and maybe do some scatter feeding with her and doing some stuff that will just help kind of reinforce that that's definitely an amazing thing to do. Do more of that, please. So that when I do need to use it in anger because there is an event taking place and I want her to disengage from it and, like work a little bit, get her nose down, it increases the probability of it happening so much more because you've encouraged it when there hasn't been a need to encourage it, if that makes sense. Really bad articulation there, but it's, yeah, that's the bit for me that I think with everyone I work with client wise, when you first start out, I think you're so worked up as an owner, as a handler, as a guardian of your dog, that you're kind of always on edge, you're always tense, and you do forget to enjoy the good bits and promote the good bits because you're kind of just waiting for the next thing. You're always kind of scanning the landscape, looking for stuff like, do I need to do a U-turn? Do I need to duck down and hide behind this car or whatever it is that you find yourself doing? That I think when you are actually having in kind of quotes a nice walk where nothing is happening, you do forget to use that to your advantage and actually promote all that good stuff that your dog's doing. So if they are actually showing signs of relaxing a little bit, if they are sniffing, if they say, even if they're having a wee, that's an amazing thing. Promote it. It's a good thing that your dog should be doing whilst they're out and about. And it's very easy to focus on the negative rather than promote the good stuff.
Yeah. I got some funny looks when I think it was about mid-November, something like that. And like I touched on previously with Waffle, the Romanian street dog puppy, he literally only toilets out on walks when he can't hold it any longer. And we'd only been out about 10 minutes or so, and he was sniffing away. So I let him have a bit more of the lead and stuff, and he was zigzagging around, and all suddenly like his back legs just sort of lowered a bit, and he just started having a wee. And I obviously let him finish, do his thing. And then I was just like raining treats down and praise and like, this is amazing. Like proper threw a party, made it seem like the best thing ever to sort of create that positive association from them. Yeah, have a wee on a walk, have a wee. And like these two old ladies, like they walked past and the looks they gave me, you could tell they were thinking, is this guy okay to be out on his own because he's like having this weird party with this dog having a wee? Like, but But for him, that was a massive thing, that he felt comfortable and safe enough to have a wee on a walk.
Yeah.
Which, it sounds silly, but for him, it was a massive, massive thing.
It's huge, and I think again, it's back to that. For what, like I said, if I just talk about my boo boo life, when I, when you start out and you know your dogs need some help and need some support, and you're working with them and doing all that kind of thing, you get so focused on that utopian end goal, which for me is the wrong mindset. And it took me a long time personally to get out of that mindset, because I just wanted a nice dog walk. I just wanted an easy life. I just wanted to be able to take my dog out and not have to worry, and just enjoy it and not have to scan the environment, do all that sort of stuff. And you forget how good wins like that are. And actually, when you start to, I always talk about kind of progress. Progress is the mark of success, not the end goal, because you can always change your end goal. It can always evolve. You'll always want better. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have this very defined, that's what I want to achieve, it can be quite disheartening, and it can kind of suck the motivation and the fun out of it. Whereas actually, just those, what are all the little things I want to kind of work towards, and all those little baby steps that I need to take. And when they happen, I absolutely make a party of it, because that's the best thing in the world, because that is progress, and that's the important thing. That means so much more to me than the end goal, because like I say, if I'm helping her, which in turn is helping me, that is where I should get all my kind of reward from, not this utopian kind of break fix type mentality that I think sometimes we can fall into, and just get frustrated by, because it's never there. There's always something more we can do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think as professionals, or even as owners, we at times we can definitely get a bit fixated on, this is what my dog can't do, this is what they're really bad at, they react to this, but this is what I want, this is the end goal. And it's like, we need to get there like yesterday, and it's not always possible. Sort of, that end goal in a 6-month period could change several times to what is the dog capable of, what are
Yeah.
you capable of, what is your trainer, your behaviorist, your veterinary team, what is the entire picture, what is actually capable of happening within that time. And it's sort of like you say, not focusing on that end goal, but just the stuff that some people might laugh at, like Waffle having a wee on a walk, or like Betty Boo like learning to sniff and just be relaxed within that environment. That's progress. Just go with it. Don't be sort of so like dismissive of it and just like, oh, we have to get to the end bit. That's the bit we need.
Yeah, I, I think I talked about this once, I think, on one of my podcasts, but it was about that kind of, like you say, you mentioned perfectly about like what is possible, what's achievable, not only with your dog but with you, helping them out, and being that kind of support network for them, as along with any other professionals that you've got helping you. Is, I think we try and do we try and pigeonhole, but we kind of have this, like they say, this utopian view of what we think our dog might want, or what we think they should be doing, regardless of whether they do or not. That's probably a different discussion. But I often liken it to, it's kind of like if I had a kid and I wanted it to be a professional footballer, and it's like, great, and I'm pushing and pushing and pushing for them to be an amazing footballer, but they're like me, they've got 2 left feet and couldn't kick a ball if it was placed on the foot, kind of thing. And it's like, that will frustrate me massively, because I've got this thing that I want to achieve, regardless of whether the person, or in the case the dog, is actually even capable of doing that, or if I've got the time to support and coach and train and help. It's such a weird kind of dynamic that for some reason we do find ourselves in with dogs all the time. We do kind of have this list of almost unwritten expectations that we have, and pup doesn't pop out of mum knowing all of this stuff, and we want to give them the best chance they possibly can to achieve it. But if you have got a dog that, for whatever reason, whether it's personality, whether it's past history, trauma, whatever it might be, we can't just kind of take that list of expectations and just plaster it on every single dog. But we do, and I kind of get it from again, from an owner perspective and a social history perspective, and I'm guilty as anyone of the comparing, walking down the park and going, oh, look at that dog. Look how well behaved they are. And I wish my dog could be like that. And you just inadvertently pile so much pressure on yourself that it just consumes you. Like it's horrible. Like I won't lie, me and my wife had some very difficult conversations about kind of Betty in our life and the home dynamic and the pressure and what it does, because it's not just we can walk her anytime, any place. She's not that type of dog. There's times and there's locations and there's things we have to plan for. And that messes up our routine, being very selfish, massively. So, but all of these things just add pressure onto us. And the more pressure that's on us, the more pressure that's on our dog. And it's such a vicious circle that you can find yourself in. And giving ourselves that break and just try not, it's really easy to say try not to do it, but it having that support network, as you mentioned, kind of around you to help you achieve that is huge, because the minute you can kind of take that pressure off yourself, that's actually when you're going to progress, because that's when things will start to change. But it's human nature. We all do it. We have goals. We look at things. We compare. We do that thing. And I had an event a couple of months back where Hugo had lost one of his claws on his foot. Obviously, really sore paw. He had a boot on because it was terrible weather and it was going to get full of rubbish. Betty's super fizzy on the morning. She's had 15 shots of espresso the second she wakes up. She's just on it. I'm not a morning person. Hugo definitely isn't a morning dog. We got kitted up. We went out for our morning dog walk. And I'm not going to lie, I knew before I'd even left the gate, it was a bad idea to walk them both together that morning. I just had that gut feel of, this is a day for walking them one-on-one. I was lazy. I took them out together. We literally got about 200 yards round the corner. She was full of it. He was grumpy. I was grumpy. A cat jumped out in front of us. Both of them are not great with cats at the best of times. And World War III erupted at the end of my lead. And I'm stood there at 7:30 in the morning in pitch darkness with two German Shepherds. And anyone who knows a German Shepherd, they're not a quiet dog at the best of times, giving it rock all to each other at the end of my lead. And I'm the local dog trainer. And it's like, I just wanted the ground to swallow me up. Like, there's nothing worse. And even though with hindsight afterward, it literally lasted seconds, by the way, this wasn't any horrific kind of fight. It was literally just, the both were just frustrated and redirected. And after the event, I got back and had my coffee and woke up and went through everything and just went, I was an idiot. I was an absolute idiot. I should never have put myself or them in that situation, but I did. And my job now is to learn from that. And as embarrassing as it was, and as awful as I felt, and as worried for my dogs, and as much as my pride was hurt and everything else, it was what it was. And I can't judge or berate my dogs for that, because in reality it was my issue, it was my failing, it was me being lazy. And it's hard to admit that as a person. Like, it is really hard to kind of just go, do you know what, I didn't really set myself up right there. I had an opportunity to prevent rather than cure. I didn't. And backfired. That's fine, it happens. And I can beat myself up over it day after day after day, or I can go, right, it happened, what do I learn from it? And and that just lifts pressure instantly away from you to go, right, okay, right, I've learned, right, fine, next time if I see X, Y, or Z warning sign, I'm going to do A, B, and C instead of what I did last time, because I know it doesn't work. But again, it's so difficult to kind of acknowledge that yourself. And it's fab because I've got people like yourself and and other professionals who I can kind of honestly pick up the phone and just go, I've just had a bad day. I've had this happen. And as as having dogs in my family, having people around you where you go, do you know what, I've had a bad day. This is what I've done. I think I've learned from it. Kind of, can you just talk some sense into me? That's amazing. So, like, anyone who's got a dog who has any kind of responses to the environment that we would consider, like, say, reactive or otherwise, it's the best thing we can do is get a support network around us as people. Because the second you've got that, it starts to take that pressure away, and it starts to allow us to know that we're not alone. We are far from alone. There is so many dogs that struggle, in our world, and we struggle as a result. And the more we can help each other out and acknowledge that it's not an easy ride, but it's a ride we're on because we love our dogs and we want to help them through it. Yeah, taking that pressure away just will help you progress so much more with anything that you're trying to work on. It is a godsend if you've got the right people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about it periodically on my page. I term it the dog's village. Like the old sort of saying, like, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah,
Sort of like applying it to the dog, and like some dogs' villages are a lot bigger than other people's. Some might have dog walkers, some might have daycare, veterinary teams, trainers, behaviourists, family, friends, neighbours, and other ones. They might literally just have just them, their own little bubble.
yeah,
Say like Indy, who I walk, he's German Shepherd Cross Collie, and his village is really small.
yeah,
That's just naturally him. He doesn't really sort of seek out affection or attention from people or other dogs. And it's not because he's been mistreated or he's had any really negative, nasty experiences. He's just quite naturally sort of introverted, if you like. And it took me a long time to get to know him. It's about 8 months, I think. Going every day, going every week, playing games, offering treats, just being in his presence. And it was about 7 months before he actually liked me just stroking. And it was literally like the blink of an eye, and then it was like, yeah. And then the next week when I went, he like met me at the door as if I was the best thing since sliced bread. But like his village, yeah, is really small. But then say like you've got like Dieter, who's got family and family dogs. There's behaviourists involved, trainers. I'm like dog walker, pet sitter, and like, she's got quite a big village. I do talk about it quite a bit because I know like, I've had like messages of like, what do you mean by the dog's village? It's like, well, it's the support bubble,
yeah.
but not just for the dog, but for each other.
It,
Like,
it makes such a difference, and I suppose the one joys of the digital age is like the Wary Woofers Club. It's that it is that support group. It's that support network, like you say, just for not only the dog but for the people, because it is so hard. And it's I think one of the other thing we often are guilty of is we try and go into solution mode as
yeah,
people. We want to offer advice, we want to offer help, we do all that kind of stuff, and sometimes in the nicest possible way, it's not what you need as an owner. I just wanted, in the same way that I did that morning with my two, I just wanted a friendly ear, a safe space where I could go, this just happened. Like, I just want to vent. I just need to get it off my chest because it was stressful and it was horrible and it was not a nice thing to go through. And as a human, I needed that outlet to go, like, I just needed to release that kind of out my head and out my mind and everything else. And in doing so, I can then take that breath where, like I say, without that need to justify it or go straight into fix mode or anything like that. I just needed that safe space to just be able to go, I had a bad day, guys. Like, can I just share it? Because I need to get it off my chest. And if you can get that, whether it's through, like I say, something like the Wary Woofers Club, whether it's through, like I say, your village, your support network, it's the way to do it, and it's the key for me to unlock pretty much anything in terms of progress when if you want to kind of help your dog out.
yeah. I know. Through pods, it can be stressful at times having a reactive dog. And I know like Jack, who set me on the path of working with dogs. He came from basically what is a backyard breeder, which we didn't know at the time. And so many issues. I've talked about him quite a lot on my page and stuff, and most people know about Jack. And I hid all his problems from the world, other than the behaviourists that we saw and the veterinary team. Very few people knew the extent of his issues. Because obviously, even though I look about 12 and I've had a shave, I actually turned 36 in January.
Is that wrong with being 36, mate?
Um, Obviously, young guy, shaved head, tattoos. Oh, there's a staff on the end of the lead who's just a tornado. And I didn't want people judging him and stuff like that. So I hid his issues from the world, didn't tell many people, which now I know is wrong. And I didn't realise there was so much out there. Like the Reactive Dogs UK Facebook page, At the time, Ignore My Dog and stuff wasn't around. And really, it was that embarrassment and that shame, like, I've got this dog and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm seeking out help left, right, and centre, and you're just getting doors shut in your face of, well, it's a staff, what do you expect?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Similar to yourself, mate. You know, I say I'm not a small guy, shaved head, beard, tattoos, walking a German Shepherd that's, you know, looking like I'm fresh out of like an 80s stereotype. It's not I say it's not helpful. It's just that world that we're in. But I use Yellow Dog.
Yeah, there's Yellow Dog as well, yeah.
Yeah, they do some great stuff. So I've literally just ordered for Betty a new bib and a new lead flag for her. Because we're at that point now where she's kind of at that tipping point of training where hopefully we can start to go to places that are a little bit more kind of challenging. So somewhere like a park. Granted, I need a big one with lots of space where I can move around, but like responsible dog ownership is something I'm madly passionate about. And I see that straight away as my duty as a responsible dog owner to help people know that my dog, she just needs space. She needs that room to deal with the environment around her. And I can help her with that and help her tell other people that give me a bit of space. I can stick a big yellow bib on her. I can stick a flag on the lead. I can wear a high vis myself with, you know, kind of give me space written on the back, whatever it needs to be. And I might feel silly, but that's the best way that I can help her because it's so visual. And any kind of responsible dog owner out there will generally have an association with high vis, yellowy type stuff with dogs. It's usually one or the other. It's either a working dog, such as an assistance dog, or it's a dog that needs a bit of space. And the general public are fab, and they read that and they kind of give you space, and they'll give you wide berths. They'll pop dogs back on leads and that kind of thing. And again, it's so hard when you've got a dog that, you know, does need more of that time and space to deal with those environmental situations. You can kind of feel quite ostracized and quite sidelined, like say, kind of hiding stuff because it's like, I know right now if I just took Betty to the park and an off-lead dog ran up to her and she had a big shout because it just got in her face too quick and she couldn't deal with that and process that, it pains me to talk about it, but there's a breedism and there's a perception piece there of I'm the big guy with the tattoos with the German Shepherd that's gone barky and shouty and snappy on the end of the lead, and the other dog that's run over to me that might have been wanting to play in the best interests. Anybody outside looking in, there's a big risk for me there that there's a potential for that to be misread.
Yeah.
And it's human nature to do that, and I kind of get it, but generally, and this is a big kind of generalization, but it's generally not helpful. And so again, back to that, I can help myself in that situation by kitting me and my dog up accordingly to kind of indicate to people, give me that space. You know, I don't want to not be able to progress with my dog and get into social situations like walking around a beautiful park. But if I'm going to put her in myself and her in that environment, I absolutely need to make sure I'm doing everything I can to protect myself, protect her, indicate to other people that I do need that extra bit of space and that, you know, if you see me suddenly walk towards you and do a U-turn, I'm not being rude. It's to help my dog out. And I think that's, again, we have stigmatisms with. Muzzles are a classic. I'm currently muzzle training Betty for that reason, because it's one of the analogies, I think it was on Hannah Brannigan's podcast, was mentioned as like a seatbelt. And I love it as an analogy, and I use it quite a lot now. It's that you get in your car, you put your seatbelt on. You get in your car, you put your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
You don't get in your car expecting or wanting or deliberately trying to crash. But if that event happens, you'll be so thankful that you wore your seatbelt.
Yeah.
And that for me is that mindset that I'm muzzle training Betty under is, yes, I know there'll be a load of people who apply a social stigma to her wearing a muzzle, but in my head, it's her safety belt. So she's going to muzzle train. I want to enjoy wearing that muzzle. I'm not just going to slap it on her face and freak her out. We're going to do some work. I want her to willingly want to come and wear it. And that is that safety net and that safety belt for me when we go out, that if something I can't plan for does happen, I've done everything in my power to protect us, you know, protecting the dogs, other people, me. And that's my seatbelt. So even though me walking around with a load of high vis on and a German Shepherd and muzzle is likely going to paint some very specific pictures in people's minds, again, I can get hyper focused on that stigma or that perception and that social pressure. Or what I hope I try and do my best of is actually I need to focus on Betty, and that is the best thing I can do for her to help her to progress and to be safe and to be comfortable and to actually get out and enjoy a walk. Because if people are naturally going to give her a wide berth, that helps her out massively.
Yeah.
That helps me out. So let's do it. Because all right, it might not look pretty and might, like I say, it might create a bit of stigma, but I honestly don't care because that's really going to help her out massively. So it's well worth doing. And I think that's, again, having a dog that does respond to that environment in ways that people might not be a big fan of, it's very easy not to want to do those things, to slap big high vis on your dog, to put muzzles on and to do all that kind of stuff. And it feels like you're victimizing and penalizing your dog for doing that. I think that's how I first felt about it. It's like, why should I have to do that with my dog? Everybody else should give me space and do this and do that and do the other. And it's not till you kind of sit back and have a conversation with a few people and go, actually, it's probably the best thing I can do. Even though in my gut reaction is that I don't like it, when you really think about it, helping your dog out in that way is a huge, huge gift that you can do. And with the right kit, the right kind of visual cues, a good quality, well-trained kind of basket style muzzle, just they are absolute godsends and a really nice way just to help everybody out and make your walk a bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
With clients, sorry to labour that point, man. With clients, the amount of clients of mine that have gone down muzzle training routes and started to enjoy walks because there's this kind of, I don't think we vocalize it, but I think anyone who's got a dog that might shout and bark and air snap or do any of that kind of stuff, whether we like it or not, I think all of our minds gravitate to the what if.
Yeah.
And a muzzle is such a great way to help remove that what if mindset from your brain, which means when you go out, you're kind of not in that, oh my God, what if this happens? What if there's an event and all the horrible stuff where your mind gravitates to? You instantly just relieve a bit of pressure from yourself. And that release from you, back to what I mentioned before, it just helps your dog as well. So like suddenly we're just a bit more relaxed going outside, which is hugely helpful. It's just, yeah, I'm very pro well-trained, good quality fitting, safe basket muzzles for anyone who's got a dog like that, because it just makes your life so much more relaxed and so much easier.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Right. 1 second. The cat's stuck in the curtains.
That's why I don't have cats, mate. It's why I don't have cats.
This is a conversation about dog, but yeah, it's the cat that's the issue. I'll be back in a second.
No worries.
There you go. Go back upstairs. What am I going to do with her? Okay. She's off back upstairs now, livid. You can tell with the ears and the eyes. Feeling embarrassed that she got both paws in the curtains.
Oh, bless her.
She's been fascinated by the snow all morning.
Have you got a lot down there?
I wouldn't say a lot. Probably, well, looking out up the steps, going into our little bit of decking in the back garden. It's about an inch and a half on the decking. So.
Oh, nice. We've got nothing up here, which is strange for us. Normally we do usually get it, but it's we've dodged most of it this year.
Happy case. But yeah, about the muzzles. I know, like, 'cause I've not seen her since March due to COVID. But I walk. She's a Rottweiler cross Labrador. She's called Kia, and she's like super nervous of unfamiliar people. So she's in like the nervous harness lead, and she obviously has to have a muzzle because people see her, and surprisingly, I don't know whether it's because she's not visually, you can tell she's not full Rottweiler, so people do tend to be a bit more inclined to try and come up to her. But her way of dealing with you is she'll try and jump up and headbutt you.
Right.
She'll try and physically make you go away if you get too
wow.
close. But I know that in the past, I think people have tried to make accusations against her that she's bit them, even though I think at the time, I think she was in like a head collar. So it was like,
Right.
so she doesn't have the full muzzle like a Labrador. It is more of a Rottweiler one. So it's like, so you're telling me that a dog with a muzzle that shape, who's in a head collar, has managed to bite you? And I think the lady said it was like the bottom of the back. So it's like, you're telling me that a dog basically snapped its jaw to try and bite you, but there was no blood, there was no ripped clothing or anything. And she now has to be in a muzzle just for that protection, really, that should someone ignore all the nervous stuff and give me space and the verbal, like, can you just give us space, please? If they got too close, they can't turn around and say, oh, well, she bit me. Because ultimately, what we're like, oh, well, it's a big, powerful dog. It's been aggressive. It's bit someone. Straight away, people are going to be pushing. It needs to be put to sleep.
Yeah, it's such a horrible state of affairs. And like I said, prevention is always better than cure. And even in a perfect world, like you say, people would adhere that kind of warning of please don't come close. It's not helpful. It doesn't help my dog. And I'm sure you are, fantastic with dogs, but this isn't slating your ability with a dog. This is just my dog's not comfortable with it. Yeah, it's again back to that kind of social thing. It's some of the things you see, it's really strange. Same with Sheps. I have usually two responses to my dogs. It's either cross the road or come incredibly close because you absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And technically, probably neither of them are really helpful at times. So it is. It's just, I think human behavior fascinates me more than dog behavior oftentimes, particularly when it comes to dogs, because it's such a strange thing. And like I said, all we can do is our best to help Pooch out. The more we can do to help them out, the better. The more we can remove risk, give warnings, help kind of not put them, or not that we do it intentionally, but the more we can avoid those situations occurring. And if we can use the right type of kit and equipment to do that, then I'm very pro that, because I think having a reactive dog, it is, as much as I hate the label, it's what people resonate with, and it helps. It just helps me deal with life around, because there's nothing worse. Amount of times I've even silly things like you bend down to pick up poo. So my sight now is currently not scanning the environment looking for something. Somebody pops out of their house or around the corner. If my dog is kitted up really well, I've got more chance now of that not becoming a big event. Whereas my dog's just in a plain old lead and harness, I'm bending down to pick up poo because my eye's not watching, and my dog spots that dog before I do. Not only am I at greater risk of being pulled over and off balance and all that kind of stuff, I'm now back to I'm dealing with a situation rather than preventing one. So that like I say, using stuff like that for me, just it's all these little wins that I think we often forget about, and we get too focused on but what's it going to look like? I don't want to put all that stuff on my dog. And I'm like, yeah, in a perfect world we wouldn't, but we don't live in a perfect world with this. Our dogs are in our environment, whether they like it or not, sadly. Therefore, if I can help them out with a well-trained babe and a lead flag or high vis, whatever it might be, then yeah. If you've got a dog like that and you're not using that sort of stuff, I'd implore anybody to just go and look, research, ask some questions about it, because the benefits it brings can be exceptional.
Yeah, and there's more and more manufacturers of like harnesses and leads and stuff who are doing. I think it was Dexel, wasn't it, dog friendly collars that started, like the traffic light system.
Yeah,
Green is friendly. orange is no dogs, red is caution, blue can be training. I think it can also be assistance. I think blue is used a couple of times. Yellow is nervous. But then you've got like yellow dog. And I think there's another one, but I'm not sure if that's in America. I think that's called the Yellow Dog Project. There's two that are very similar in the names. I don't know how they've got away with that really. And I know there's a group on Facebook. I think it's called Not Being Rude, We Just Want Space. And they make stuff made to order. So if you've got like a really awkward dog, like I know like lurchers, whippets, stuff like that, they tend to be quite awkward to buy for sort of off the shelf.
Yeah.
They'll make these bibs and stuff specifically, and you can have your own word input on, which is good. And then you've got stuff like Ignore My Dog, which is more for the human side, isn't it? Like the hoodies, and the t-shirts and stuff.
There's just it is, and I think as a community, I think that's what's really nice. I think it's nice to see that, again, the joys of that kind of digital age does allow many of us who do have dogs who, you like to say, are anxious, nervous, whatever kind of emotional state they might have. The fact that we can start to have, like I say, products, kit, equipment, things that are built with the right intentions and used in the right ways is huge, because it will help. And even you mentioned before there about like kind of, like the green for friendly. It's like, that's massively insightful for me, because if I walk down the street with Betty Boo, if I know there's a very friendly dog, then that for me can be just as bad as seeing a equally kind of nervous dog. Because if that dog is very friendly and does want to come and say hello and does want to play and is going to get a little bit vocal or whatever it is because of the excitement, that is going to have a very similar effect in terms of Betty wanting to get more anxious and more nervous about that very excitable dog. And again, so that's really insightful for me as a pooch parent walking about with Betty, to go, right, actually, I know their dog's friendly, but I actually definitely want to give that dog a wide berth, because their excitement might be too much for Betty to process, and that it's going to impact me that way. And I think that's where, again, we often overlook the value of that type of stuff in kind of responsible dog ownership. Of, it's not so much about the message I'm trying to get out, it's about how that message can also be received by other people. Because that's going to give, if I don't like dogs jumping up at me, for example, and there's a very happy, excited dog on the end of a lead who's very friendly, not to stereotype again, but that dog may be more prone to jumping up in excitement to say hello to a person. Therefore, as a member of Joe Public walking around, I can go, I might want to just, again, give that dog slightly wider berth, because I don't really want a happy, excitable dog jumping up at me. So I might just arc my walk a little bit different. And I think that's where we forget how valuable that type of stuff is, and how we can really kind of promote that education of responsible dog ownership. There's more dogs now than ever, I think, at the minute. And they're all different. They've all got their own personalities, and we all respond to them in different ways as people as well. Like I say, I'm a dog trainer, I'm dog daft. But as much as I want to run over and say hello to every dog I see, I don't, because I kind of know what it's like on the other side of the fence to be a recipient of that. However, not everyone's that kind of way inclined. So it's a huge area that I hope just grows and helps kind of promote more and more stuff for people.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely growing. Like when I had Jack, there wasn't really anything out there really. Nothing that I could find anyway that was of good quality. And then, like I say, like Dexel create that dog-friendly collars. Yellow Dog do some stuff. There's Ignore My Dog, that Facebook group I spoke about. And I know now JTech K9, you can have stuff put on his collars and stuff.
Right.
Kind of like Dieter had one, and it said nervous across it, and it's in, I think it's reflective or whatever. So I think even if she was being walked at night, you would see the word nervous really lit up around the neck on the collar and stuff. So it's becoming more mainstream, and I know a lot of pet shops and stuff are now starting to stock these sort of things. And sort of, when I first started out dog walking and stuff, and so, oh well, my dog's anxious or it's nervous, or if it sees a Shih Tzu or if it sees a German Shepherd or whatever type of dog it was, it'll have a reaction. It'll do this. Well, I'm not happy to go out in public with it just in a basic collar, harness, and lead. We need to be telling people that this dog needs space. And sort of as my career sort of gone on over the last few years, I've had less and less resistance to that. More and more people are more, where can I buy this stuff?
Yeah.
Where can I get it for my dog? So when I'm walking them, because I have all this kit in my bag and stuff like harnesses and leads and spare leads, and they're like, where can I get it from for when we're walking? So it's becoming more mainstream. I think more people are accepting that there is dogs out there with issues that are not instantly fixable, which I think is amazing. And people like Lewis Nichols have like Ignore My Dog, and I think they're at the forefront of really pushing all this sort of stuff, which is just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I must admit, I love the Ignore My Dog stuff. I love the Woof culture stuff as well, where
I'm wearing a Woof culture hoodie today.
I usually have one of my t-shirts on.
It's the one that says on the back, yes, we're training, but no, you can't say hi.
Yeah.
She also said it on the front as well. I wish it said it on the front as well.
It's but that sort of stuff's awesome because it does bring a bit of humor in. And I think in these scenarios, it's very easy to get so serious and so focused on it. We can forget some of the more humorous sides of it. And I think one of Wolf cultures is kind of something about the kind of nervous, anxious dogs kind of social distancing before it was cool. Yeah. And it is, and there's elements of that it makes me giggle, and it's kind of and I think with all the kind of support equipment in the world, I still implore everyone to still, as you mentioned, kind of get that village, whether it's with professionals, with vets, with friends and family, online stuff, whatever it might be, because managing it is one thing, starting to progress through it's the kind of the other bit, and those two things complement each other very, very well. I think it can be easy to fall into that camp of, well, I've bought some kit and therefore people should then respond to my kit and my kit alone, which I think can be quite a dodgy line to walk at times. So I think it's one part of the puzzle, 100% it is, and it's a part that I'd actively promote. But I think, like you say, getting the right village around you, getting the right support around you is definitely the other big piece of that puzzle to really start to help your dog out. Because a bit like me with, my fear of spiders, I don't want that debilitating me for my entire life. And, so I will try and do things to overcome it slowly but surely so that I can be, it's just not something that has to really be a big part of my life, because it makes my life more enjoyable. And it's really similar with our dogs. I don't want Betty Boo living in a world for the next however many years where going outside on lead is the worst time of her day.
Yeah.
I want that to be one of the best times of her day. So that I see that as kind of her pooch parent as being my kind of responsibility to help her achieve that, because that's exactly what I should be doing rather than managing around it forever. And there's a very small percentage of dogs where that is fact because of whatever kind of causes are behind it. But for a lot of dogs, a lot of this stuff can be overcome with time and patience and the right support. But time and patience are hard work, 100% hard work. And I think that's where we as people can often struggle and get frustrated. But like I say, get the right village around you, mate, and it is achievable. Absolutely. Betty Boo's a testament to that. She's still not perfect in inverted commas, but she is a million miles from where she was when she first joined us, and that makes me smile every day because hopefully we're having that positive impact in her life.
Yeah, that's like what we say about Puds. I mean, she's getting older now. She's got arthritis. Her eyesight's going, her hearing's starting to go. And we know she was never going to be a social butterfly with other dogs and stuff, but she's a lot better than she was when we first adopted her. And we say she's perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
She's at the maximum what she can be and what we need her to be. We don't need her to be running around with every dog that she meets and stuff. And if she's not coping, we just turn around and go home. And she can do what she's doing now, getting on the sofa and snoring.
Yeah. It's like I say, for me, it's about giving your dog the best quality of life as possible. And like you say, social butterfly, Yeah, I'm not fussed about Boo Boo being a social butterfly. She's got me, she's got my wife, she's got our other dogs. You know, there's plenty of social interaction for her to have that. So we're not depriving her of that. But I also don't want to be putting her into those overly social situations where she's just going to fail as well, because it's
Yeah.
just not helpful. It's, you know, I'm not a big social butterfly either, and when I have to go and do big social events, it, you know, kind of takes it out of me. So I don't do a lot of them for that reason, and it's very similar to my pooch. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Right. One thing we will talk about, despite the craziness that's gone on this year, you managed to get away over to Turkey to do some work.
Yeah. Hi,
Hopefully,
Ed.
I pronounce it right. Hired Animal Charity.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so my folks live over in Turkey, which is kind of how that became a thing for me. So when they retired, they kind of spend a good proportion of their time out there, and they work with this charity Hired. My dad's on the, well, I say the board, but the committee, I think, is what they refer to it as. My mum's heavily involved in fundraising and things like that. They're an amazing charity. Like many other countries, obviously they do have challenges with street animals.
Yeah.
I think what appealed to me about what they do is, well, a couple of bits. They are, I think I'm right in quoting this, they are the first animal education charity in Turkey. So
Wow.
what they do is, yes, they help deal with the problem of street cats and dogs, by organized um, kind of neutering and spaying, and they do kind of feed stations and kind of critical care for animals that have been injured in road traffic accidents and things like that. But their big arm of what they do is about education. So they have a little education village. So they've got this little wonderful little, it's kind of like a hut, and they have a little animal park. I say animal park, but a little park where some of the dogs get to go for rehabilitation. They bring school kids down. They go to schools, and they teach a lot about animal welfare, about kind of animal needs, and that kind of thing, and trying to do a big shift culturally, because obviously historically in Turkey, particularly this region of Turkey where they are, um, there's a lot of old wives' tales used with kids to prevent the kids from wanting to go and interact with the animals on the street. So it's absolutely done in the best interest from a parental perspective to try and kind of stop kids going off and trying to play with strange animals in the street, which makes total sense. The problem with that is a lot of it's based in fear.
Oh, no.
So rather than it being a kind of don't interact with dog for X, Y, and Z reason, it tends to be quite fear driven, which means there's a large portion of the population that have this quite innate fear of street animals. Therefore, they may or may not be particularly kind to them if they come across them. So
Right.
that's where the animal welfare thing comes in. So what they're trying to do is actually rechange that and re-educate around what it actually means to be a street animal, what rights they're actually legally protected now as well. So
All
you
right.
know you can't go around doing horrible things to animals out there. There's a very sad small population that still do, but the majority of people now respect the laws. The actual local council out there are fantastic. They have feeding stations, water stations dotted around the city for the street animals. So obviously it gets incredibly hot out there. There's always fresh water for the animals and things like that. So there's a very prevention and cure type mentality to the charity, which is one of the reasons I kind of just absolutely loved what they do, because they're kind of tackling it from every angle, not just dealing with the perceived problem of street animals and that kind of thing. They're actually dealing with the education around them. It's pet ownership out there is growing as well. So when I first went out there, God, too long ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, like the idea of having a pet dog was incredibly alien unless you were a farmer.
Yeah.
Now you pretty much can't drive down any of the main streets in their local city without passing a pet shop. Um, so huge cultural shifts taking place. This charity do a lot of work to support that as well. Um, so yeah, when I went out there, like I say, my parents are heavily involved. They do a lot of fundraisers and things like that. So I offered, should we do a bit of a kind of dog fun day stroke training day? and kind of build on that education and start to do some things with the local community, the expat community, and basically anyone who's interested in dogs. So yeah, I had a fantastic opportunity to go out there, and we spent a whole day. We spent the morning into the afternoon at the education village doing little train-alongs. We had some little kind of scent courses, agility, various other little bits and bobs down there for people to come and kind of have a go of some Q&A with me. And then on the evening, we had a big fundraiser kind of charity quiz that was all dog themed. So yeah, it was just an amazing day and a nice way to kind of help support that charity and build a bit more awareness and that kind of stuff. So yeah, a wonderful thing to do, and I'm very proud of my parents for being part of it. And it was nice just to go along and help them in my own little way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I notice, especially over the last few years, it has become more and more popular with various pet care professionals, whether dog walkers, dog trainers, vet nurses and stuff, going abroad, and a lot of it working with like street dogs and stuff. I know Steve Mann talks about it in one of his books about going to Peru and watching the street dogs over there and learning their body language and stuff. Helen Mottram and that, and Jamie Pound from Pet Professional Network and UK Sniffer Dogs, they go out to Cyprus, I think it is.
Yeah, Rachel Bean, I think she goes as far as Thailand, is it? I think one of the charities she's heavily involved with. It's, I think what amazes me more than anything is watching street dogs is just phenomenal. Like, and again, loving my analogies, I often talk about it with clients, because back to that expectation that we have of our dogs versus what our dogs would choose to do if we weren't really heavily influencing them is really quite polar opposite. And I think when you get to see street dogs, that really brings it home, because they're not crazy excitable animals. They're very generally, big generalization, but they're generally very placid. They love sleeping. They're never charging around anywhere like lunatics. They're usually just plodding along, just kind of checking out what's going on. And even the ones that kind of are around tourists and around kind of food hotspots and things like that, they're generally quite mellow about it all. They're a very kind of calm animal to be around. Whereas some of my clients' dogs, and even Betty Boo in kind of on a morning, she's insanely fizzy. Like, and when you see street dogs and then see my inverted kind of pet dog, they're just worlds apart in personality and how they deal with life and how they deal with things. And I think there's a lot to learn. I know Steve talks about this quite a lot, and I think the rucksack walk that he does was inspired by it. But
yeah,
there's a lot we can take from those dogs, and I think as a professional getting out there, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's in some places it's horrible and it's very hard to stomach it sometimes. But when you do get to work with those charities that help those dogs and help those animals, and you can see them being probably as close to natural as possible if they are in a safe environment, it's so enlightening to kind of watch them and see them kind of interact with our world. And it's that, for me, that's true choice, true freedom. That's very much, if they are fed, watered, sheltered, they are very much a happy dog. And then, so I always try and look at my dogs and kind of go, right, what would they choose to do right now if I wasn't around? Like, would they be snoozing? Would they be eating? Would they want to go out sniffing? They certainly generally don't want to be chasing up and down after a tennis ball, because generally, if you go see street dogs, there's loads of fast moving objects. Most of them don't care, not bothered. That's not quite there for them. So it's a lot of energy expenditure. So trying to find that balance, they're very, very inspiring to watch those types of dogs deal with the world around them. And I think there is a lot we can learn from them. So helping charities out to support them, I think, for me is definitely worth it. And obviously, again, there's plenty at kind of home as well we can do it with as well. Lots and lots of charities, particularly obviously post-COVID, are sadly struggling because it's not the same type of fundraising world that we used to be in.
No. But I know, like, from speaking to quite a few people, and then like sometimes you're like Steve Mann when he's on courses and stuff, and he talks about it, how it really changes their perception as a professional, and it makes them a better professional watching these street dogs and stuff. Like Waffle, he's not what you would term a true street dog. They think he was born in the pound sort of stuff, but obviously the genetics and everything that run through him and his parents, grandparents, whatever, were street dogs. And I've started doing quite a lot of courses. I don't know if you've heard of her. It's a lady called Mish Masters,
No,
and
I
she
don't think I've heard of
specialises in Romanian rescue dogs.
it. All right.
She only works with Romanian dogs, and she has done for, I think, she'll shoot me if I get it wrong. I think it's about the last 10 years, there or thereabouts. It's about the last 10 years. She's gone from sort of doing puppy classes and normal sort of training stuff to just working with Romanian dogs. And going through all her stuff and her knowledge and insight into these dogs is amazing, how they are very different to our pet dogs. You know, how, say like your reactive dog or whatever might stop and observe and stuff, but sort of these street dogs, they do that naturally. They're very constantly assessing what's safe, what's unsafe and stuff. And
Yeah.
amazing delving into that world with her through her webinars and courses and stuff like that. It's amazing.
It's absolutely fascinating. It's and again, the more we kind of learn, the more it opens up. And again, we do make a lot of, we do humanize quite a lot, but it's the same for us, like as people, where you come from, how you grow up, what your life experiences are, what your genetics are, all of these things all make this incredibly complicated cocktail into who we are and what we do and how we do things. We almost fall into a little bit of generalization with our dogs of 4 legs, tail, ears, eyes, mouth, therefore you're a dog, and therefore back to that preconceived list of expectations just seems to come out. And I think that's quite a social thing for us as humans, particularly in the UK. And I think that's what really fascinates me about work like that, because it really does open your eyes to we kind of really need to just rip that up. There is definitely some life skills that all dogs need to be able to live in our world, absolutely. But what we should then want or expect and have our dogs do is so unique and so individual that we shouldn't, in my opinion, kind of plaster them all with these same expectations, because everyone's unique and we have to embrace that and support that, and that's part of who they are. And as you mentioned before, that for me is bringing that best quality of life that we can to them.
Yeah, absolutely. What else have we got? Yeah, I suppose we can't really have you on without talking about your podcast.
Oh, my poor podcast. It's taken a hit this year, bless it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's has, haven't they?
Yeah, it's to be fair, I make excuses. The Woofing Pattison podcast was never ever done anything like it before, so I kind of just plunged in the deep end. I've obviously listened to quite a few myself, and one thing I found with a lot of podcasts was there's quite a lot out there aimed at professionals like you and I. Not that many aimed at general dog owning public. So that was kind of my inspiration behind it. I wanted a doggy podcast that was probably a bit more consumable by kind of, like non-doggy geeks. It took a bit of a hiatus midsummer when I signed for and started to work on my own training venue, and I've done a couple of episodes since and got some more kind of lined up ready for the new year to hopefully come back with a bit more regularity. But yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it, and it was something I never thought I'd enjoy as much as I do. But yeah, it's a great way to hopefully just help share some insights. I know obviously you fantastically came along and guested on one of them for me, and there's just so many topics and so many ways that we can just help, again, just share a bit more knowledge. There's knowledge is that key to unlocking everything. So the more we can get out there, the more we can share, the more we can make it accessible. For me, that's kind of a bit of a gift. And if I can spare 20, 30, 60 minutes of my time kind of once a week to try and do that and help people out, if some people get some value from it, then it's definitely worth it in my opinion. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy doing it. It's good fun, and it's brilliant when you do have guests and you can kind of have that interaction and conversation rather than people listening to me waffle on.
Yeah. That is one thing that I do like about your podcast, is that sometimes you have guests on and other times it's you talking about stuff like criteria, expectations, sleep, something that not many people think about for their dogs. But yeah, sort of a lot of podcasts, it tends to be just guest after guest after guest after guest after guest. And they cover some amazing subjects and stuff and various things that you think. Yours was just like slightly different, how sometimes it is just you chatting away.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the listeners enjoy that one as much, but no, I think it is because I think there's so many. One of the things when I was doing classes quite heavily pre-COVID, there was always kind of lots of topics or questions that I either got asked or that I kind of skirted over with an element of, I think ignorance might be the right description of kind of assumed understanding from people, which I think is very foolish on my part. And I think, again, that was kind of what made me start to pick some of the topics that I did, because it's things like criteria. It's quite a complex subject. And even though I tried to streamline it as best I could on the podcast, a lot of it comes quite naturally to us.
Yeah.
And when you stop and think about it, it suddenly becomes really complex, which again just baffles the mind a bit more. But when we are doing anything with our dogs, obviously just having that foresight of criteria is really quite important. And some people do it more naturally than others. And I think that's where, again, it trying to be a little bit more prescribed for people, I think just kind of does help level the playing field a little bit, because I was absolutely fall into that trap of assumption sometimes with clients. And you know what to say about assumptions that I won't say on here, but it does absolutely start to build in that disconnect again. And the more we're disconnected, the more painful just everything gets. It just gets a little bit more complicated. So I wanted to really try and just bring in these little points of, if you are listening to a podcast and somebody just drops in the word criteria or drops in the word marker, or these little words that we use quite commonly in the profession, aren't actually always really obvious to other people. And I think that's why I would just want to start to unpick them and dive into them in a little bit more detail and trying to explain them, but hopefully not in a patronizing or condescending way. Same thing with the leads one was one of my favorites, because I think I talk about leads to people more than I think any other bit of equipment that we have for dogs, because I think it's one of these things, you go out, you find a pretty one and you buy it. Yet your lead can be your absolute best friend with anything. And it's not till you sit back and really start to think about what's the purpose of it and why do I want it and what type should I have and what things should I consider when buying one. It's kind of like a house or a car, or, you know, for me, it's as big a decision as people might think I'm a bit nuts for that, but I don't just go out and buy the one that I think's pretty, because I have a set of needs that I need to meet. So taking that 10 minutes and going, right, what's the purpose of this lead? Like, what am I trying to do with it? And actually really thinking about that a little bit more than you might have done before can have massive effects for you. The amount of people I see, and it's no disrespect to them at all, but will come to a class with a 3-foot, beautifully pretty lead and wonder why the dog can't do any form of loose lead walking, because it is literally 3 foot from their hand to the back of the dog's harness. Therefore, you're instantly tight. I can't do loose lead walk because I've got nothing to move with. So I'm instantly not helping myself or my dog now, all because of a single purchase. And I think topics like that, I think, are just weirdly fascinating for me, which I think is why I quite enjoy talking about them.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an equipment geek when it comes to it. So, like, someone had shared a picture like a year or two ago, when it might have been even a bit longer, and it was from the JTAC K9 Facebook page, and it was a stunning Mali with the collar on and that, looking like quite a military style collar and stuff. You know, that dog just looked the business. And so I followed the page for a while before I made any purchase, and I was looking at the types of leads and collars and stuff he was making. And now I think I've got a waterproof lead from him. I've got a normal everyday lead that I use, that I like because it's got a second handle just above the clasp.
Yeah.
It's more designed for like your military, your police types of guys, because I think it's called like the Pro Riot Lead Classic or something. But it's just like, if I'm with a dog that I might need to get out of dodge pretty quickly and just sort of, we're going to turn and go this way, you've got that extra sort of, rather than grabbing at a lead. Yeah. And I've got a 10-meter long line from him, and like Big Fluff's the Pyrenean mountain dog that I walk. He's dragged it through the woods. It's been through swamps. It's been wrapped around trees, Dieter's had it in the lake and God knows whatever else. It's been really tested and it looks brand new.
It's
Absolutely brand new. And he's the one person I trust completely with leads. And you can have it different lengths. So if you needed like a 4-meter one or whatever, he can make it to that size for you.
It is amazing what's out there. Like the technology in terms of the materials and stuff, the types of people who are making them now that aren't the, the bog standard pet shop type, that you would classically go and buy. And again, I think it's like everything, it's just awareness. And before I really got into this professionally, I was like every other dog owner out there. I went to the mainstream pet shops. I bought what was on the shelves, and because I didn't know any different. I didn't realize there was this whole other world that I'd never been exposed to because I'd just never been exposed to it. So I think the minute you can start to ask questions about something, that kind of starts to hopefully provoke that curiosity, and the curiosity will then lead you to finding the right type of things that you ultimately want to get to. I'm a bit like you with harnesses. Like I have far too many to go because every time I see it, I'm like, oh, but that's got something else slightly different. And again, when you start exploring that world, it's crazy. Like the biomechanics that people really do think about with some really quality harnesses versus the thing I could just go and buy off the supermarket shelf or off the pet shop high street shelf is the worlds apart. And the mad thing is cost isn't usually that much of an issue. Like what I could buy at a mainstream kind of pet shop versus what I could buy from a bespoke manufacturer aren't really, like you'd think there'd be like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and they're actually not. There's usually not a lot of money in between it. And it's like, so I'm going to get this amazing high quality product that's much better for my dog than that. And that's not to do any disservice to the pet shops, but it's just that is much better suited to my needs and my dog's needs than that particular thing is. And I never ever would have explored that without, like I say, just being aware of it. Of like, I'd never heard of the word biothane before I became a professional, and now it's something I spout about quite regularly. It's
Biothane Bert and that,
yeah. It's just, again, it's one of those materials that is fantastic for the world that that you live in. Like this time of year when it's hideous out there, my biothane long line is one of my favorite things because I get back, it gets a towel wiped through it, and it's brand new, clean, doesn't smell, it's not soggy and horrible and nasty in my hands. And it's like, I think of all those years I had rubbish, saturated, finger burn nylon long lines that were all horrible, and it's like, and this cost me no more than any other long line would have, and it's the best thing in the world in my opinion. It is, it's crazy. That's kind of what I want to try and do with the podcast, is just open doors for people, just to go, if I can spark some questions and curiosity to it, then for me it's definitely kind of doing its job.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you've also been interviewed on a podcast, quite a big podcast as well, haven't you? Back from the bookshelf.
Just to brag, I've been on 2.
Oh yeah, you've been on there. You did share it, and I saw it.
So I've been on Canine Nations. Yeah, I was very honoured to be asked to go on to Canine Nation and speak, very similar to what we're talking about now, kind of dogs with kind of what we would term historically as kind of reactivity. And I got to partner alongside the amazing Claire Lawrence doing that, of High Peak Dogs. So that was a bit weird, I won't lie, because that's the first time I've ever kind of been alongside a professional who I massively admire and look up to. And so to kind of suddenly be a guest alongside them was a little bit of a culture shock, and suddenly felt very imposter syndrome heavy. And also got to join the guys on Barks from the Bookshelf as well, which is one of my all-time favorite podcasts. So it's there's just so many out there, so many amazing ones. And I think if I look through my Spotify, it's just doggy podcast after dog podcast after dog podcast. It's there's just so much variety, and so many amazing trainers share so much stuff on it as well. Like trainers that you'd usually, being honest, you'd have to pay a lot of money to get access to. Just putting podcasts out for free, and
One
the
second,
knowledge.
close that. The sun's coming.
No, that's fine, mate. To be fair, we've just had a delivery, so my dogs are saying hello to the delivery driver at the minute.
Blinding. Yeah, like you say, some of the trainers that are on, like Barks from the Bookshelf and Dog Talk with Nick Benger and stuff, you think you would have to spend a lot of money just to spend an hour with that person to ask them questions and to get their opinion on something. You'd spend a lot of money, and you can just hit Spotify and listen to that person talk for an hour or so.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. And again, that's a bit that for me was just fascinating. Of just I'd never really been into podcasts again, not till I kind of went professional and found Nick. I think Nick Benjamin was one of the first one I ever listened to. And then from there, I found Hannah Brannigan's Drinking from the Toilet, and then so many others. And then like I say, I don't have enough hours in the day to listen to them all now, but it's just to get that type of access. And what's lovely about podcasts as well is they don't tend to be kind of sequential or series in that sense. So you can literally scroll through and find a podcast about kind of, anxious dogs, and you can listen to it. And they tend to be really quite encapsulated in that little episode alone. So if there's a specific topic or subject that you kind of want to cover or learn about, you can just scroll and you can just listen to them randomly without any kind of, I need to listen to the previous 312 episodes before I can actually really listen to the one that I want to listen to, because that's when you think of a lot of series stuff, that kind of how it works. But with podcasts, it isn't. It's so kind of pick and mix. And that's what I love about it, because I can just say, this person did an amazing podcast about that topic. Just go and listen to it. Like, just consume that one little 20-minute or hour-long, 2-hour-long podcast, and you'll get so much information from it. It's free. It's insane. How is this stuff free? But it is. So yeah, I'm definitely a big podcast lover these days.
Yeah, I've grown to them. I never could see the attraction before sort of dog training, dog walking and stuff. And you start hearing about people sharing this podcast and that podcast. I just think, what are people talking about on these things? But I love them.
Definitely the way forward.
Oh yeah. I suppose another thing, you have touched on it a few times about your training venue.
Yes, yeah. Wow, labour of love that's been. Picked the perfect year to do it. Obviously, it was. No, so obviously again with, like so many pet professionals, you and I included, kind of inspiration came from our own dogs, and one of the hardest things I think working with any dog that really struggles with some of that environmental stimulus, whether it's other dogs, cars, people, whatever it might be, training can become quite difficult at times, because you're basically kind of limited to your immediate outside environment or your house. That tends to be the two places where you can predominantly train, and potentially kind of a local village hall, which is what I used to use when I used to do classes. And the problem with all three of those is kind of, from a training perspective, is kind of setting them up to really work for whatever it is that you're training on. So that with Betty in mind, it was kind of right, what would be amazing is if I had a space I could take that was totally safe and secure, and I could set the environment up to do some quite targeted training work with her to help her learn the basics, so that when I do then need to go out in the big bad world, I've got some kind of solid foundations to build upon, rather than trying to build the solid foundations immediately in the big bad world, which for a lot of dogs can be too overwhelming. And again, back to that kind of end goal progress type mindset, it was kind of, that was one of the challenges I came across regularly as a trainer with clients, was where can they go where they can do this work, where they're not going to be ambushed by somebody popping out of nowhere straight into the dog's kind of zone of kind of response, and kind of losing all of the good work that they may have just done. So yeah, I set about hunting for a venue and scoping it out, trying to figure out, was it even financially possible, let alone anything else. I won't lie, I felt really lucky. I found a local farm that had a big, effectively 2/3 of a barn available, and also I think it's about 1.5 acre paddock as well for rent. And it was a fixer upper. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't kind of pristine, ready to move into, but yeah, I was like, it was too good to be true. It's about 15 minutes from where I live. It's quite nice and rural. It's an equestrian farm, so I've kind of got some built-in distraction on my doorstep if I need it. And so, yeah, so we set about converting this barn into a dog training venue. So from August till Halloween, October 31st was when I opened the doors, which was also the day that the government lovely kindly decided to tell us that we're going back into another lockdown. So it was a very short-lived opening of about 4 days, I think it was. But yeah, so it's kind of split into half. So one half is the main reception entrance, an office, a little kind of coffee area, and there's also a little kind of kids area as well, because again, we've all got busy lives, we've all got families, and we're not all in that luxurious position of just being able to go for a session training my dog alone. And so for people who have young children, they come along. There's little kind of, it's all dog themed, obviously. So there's loads of dog themed colouring books and all that kind of stuff. So they can just sit and chill out and watch what we do. They can come and take part. It's all wheelchair accessible as well. But then the main training floor is accessible via a roller shutter door.
Yeah.
So again, as I mentioned, it's an equestrian farm. So driving in and that stimulation of horses and people and things like that, obviously there's farm dogs, that could technically be a recipe for disaster. So I wanted it so you could effectively just drive straight in, we shut the door, then your dog can get out the vehicle, and then they're not having to have any of that overwhelming stimulus in the kind of farm area before we even start training, because again, that wouldn't be good for the owner, it wouldn't be good for the dog, it wouldn't be good for me. So the idea is you can just drive straight in, we shut the door, there's about 1,000 square foot of AstroTurf training floor, and then there's also a decompression stroke confidence type area as well, so that kind of between little sessions of training, Pooch can go in there, they can experience lots of different textures and surfaces and objects and kind of get their nose down and seek out some treats and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's still, obviously, like all good things, they're never finished. But it's open and we're back after the most recent lockdown ended. We were able to open the doors again and start having one-to-one clients back again. We will have classes up there eventually when they can be permitted, because we are in a tier 3 area where I'm located. So yeah, I'm totally stoked about it. I'm absolutely loved it. I never thought I'd be in a position to have it any time in the next 10 years. So to have it now is a true privilege, and it's been well received. My clients seem to really enjoy it. The paddock, I'm itching to kind of get my hands on, because obviously winter's not a great time to be doing a lot of field work. But yeah, come spring, hopefully it'll be a bit drier and we can get it all securely enclosed, and then we'll have that ability to have outdoor classes. The bit I'm super excited about that I haven't been able to do yet is I want to build an area that's going to be specifically for dog socialization, but securely. So for again, good old Betty Boo, to help her learn how to interact with other dogs, I want to build an area where she can do that either on or off lead, but they will still have some safety.
Yeah.
So even though there's still barriers there, and that in itself can sometimes be a bit of a frustration for dogs, generally where you've got safety in mind, one of the hardest transitions with any kind of training with any dog that does get a little bit spooked by particularly other dogs is, how do I start to do this at a closer distance? Because if my dog's progressing and I'm able to have them around dogs in a much closer distance than they were historically, that's amazing. However, on the street, I'm still going to run into problems like potentially being on the same path, popping out from around a corner, a blind corner where we didn't see them. And so being able to set those environments up are quite difficult unless you can really control it. So being able to have a field where I can build these little areas where we can have controlled setup environments, but safe ones, so that if, I don't know, if somebody dropped a lead accidentally, there's going to be no risk of any issue occurring because of the way that it'll be designed. So that for me is that missing piece of the puzzle between having lots of distance work from dogs and having great success there, and then also having to meet dogs. That can sometimes be a bridge too far for some dogs, and I know it will be for my Betty Boo. So totally selfish build, but I think if I need it, the chances are there's going to be lots of other clients that do.
Lots of other people who's going to need it.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to kind of for springtime to come, and we can start building that and working on that and having these areas to allow dogs to socialize and interact, but remove so much of the perceived risk that would normally be there if I just went to the park and did it. So yeah, that's yeah, my new little baby is the training venue. It's yeah, super excited by it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm quite envious. I don't have my own venue yet. That is
Come and use mine, mate. It's
that
nice
is
to have you.
definitely on my bucket list. The crazy thing is round here, sort of to get land or industrial units or whatever, they're either not big enough but they're cheap, or they're not classified where you could use them for animals and like dogs and stuff to
Yeah.
be there, or they're stupidly too big, which obviously comes at an even bigger cost, or they just need that much money spending on them. It's just not financially viable to get them to pay the rent, and then you've got to fork out quite a lot of money because it needs a lot of work doing.
Yeah, it's I had exactly the same problem because again, working with dogs, you need space, and space isn't cheap. It just doesn't matter where in the world you are, space is not cheap. And I looked at like big industrial units. I looked at like offices. I looked at just buy like land. Could I just get some land and rent or buy that and do that? Yeah, so I like I say, I was incredibly lucky to come across the one that I did at the time I did, and it's yes, it wasn't without expense, sadly, but it was the opportunity. It was a go for broke type moment of I'm going to have to do this and just see if it works out. But yeah, now it's there and it's in an operational capacity. It's yeah, just filled with exciting ideas for next year now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, happy days. Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. I think it's yeah, we've definitely gone on a lot longer than I thought we would. A lot
Sorry
longer.
about that, mate. It's my waffling.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So if anyone's still watching this when it's uploaded, you've done well to last this long.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, for anyone who is watching, where can they find you on social media and things, Greg?
Yeah, so my website is greatpaws.co.uk. I've got an online training website as well. There's some free courses on there that people are welcome to go and enjoy, which is greatpawsgang.co.uk. And then I'm on usual social medias, and the handle for most of them is at greatpawsne for Northeast. So greatpawsne is where most people can find me on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And the Woofing Pawsome podcast is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and or pretty much every other platform I think I could get it on.
Yeah, happy days. Good stuff. Well, it's been
Thank you so much for having me, mate. It's been a
yeah,
pleasure.
not a problem. Like I say, I didn't realise we'd gone on for as long as we had.
It's well, hopefully some people have stuck it out and it was worth it. But it's huge congratulations on the on this club, mate, because it'll be a great community and a great place for people to seek support. And yeah, happy and proud to have been invited on, mate. It's going to be a huge success and definitely what people like me with that type of dog, the one that does like to woof a little bit too much, is we will absolutely love it, mate. So thank you very much for pulling it together.
Yeah, hopefully it'll go from strength to strength, and the various little ideas that I've got in the pipeline for it will come off in the coming months and years. So yeah, no, it's been great talking to you today. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
mate. Take care, buddy. See you
Take care.
soon.
Bye.